Hey guys, welcome to Retro Media Talk Podcast. I'm Steve, and with me tonight I have
Mike.
Mike Gallas is on the line. We don't have Steve this week. He is at a big concert festival.
Yeah, lucky guy.
Yeah. And so we're going to switch up the tables. Instead of doing a movie tonight, we're going to do a whole segment on technology from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, stuff that we had and stuff that we didn't have, but we either experienced from a friend or in a store or something. But anyway, we're going to talk about technology. And to kick this off, let's start in the 70s with the holy grail of game systems. And yes, I think you know what I'm talking about, Mike.
Yeah, that would have been most likely Atari.
Atari 2600. You are correct. Ding,
Yeah.
ding, 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 ding.
And I never had one.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
I know.
I would have thought you would have had one for sure.
No, the first thing that my dad ever brought home was something called Pong. And, we were mesmerized. We thought that was really cool, and then eventually, real quick, it got old.
Well, I love Pong. I still have my Pong, believe it or not. You
Wow.
talking about the Radio Shack game system?
I don't know. It was some knockoff. It may have been, something else. Odyssey, maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I still have it. It was from Radio Shack, and it was
That's
Pong.
cool. That's
It had
really
Pong,
cool.
and it had, I don't know, a few different games on there. But, I got to dig that out. You totally jogged my memory on that.
So, what did you think? How did you get your Atari then?
Well, this is the crazy thing. It came out in 77, and I remember my aunt and uncles, we were over at my grandma's for Christmas and Christmas Eve, and they got to open it on Christmas Eve. And that was the first time I laid my eyes on Atari 2600. And
Nice.
oh my gosh, I wanted that so bad. Obviously my parents didn't have the money for it then, but
Right.
when it came out, I'm not sure how expensive it was, but it was pretty pricey.
Do you remember what the pack-in game with it was?
There was a tank game, I believe, that came with it. Battle something maybe?
That tank game was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was. But I remember, after, they hooked it up, we played it. I was just mesmerized by the Atari.
Right.
And a lot of times, I got dropped off on the weekends to stay the night at my grandma's, and oh my gosh, I couldn't wait to get there every weekend because I knew I'd be playing Atari 2600,
Right.
So you did not get the Atari 2600? Did you know anybody with it at the time?
Yeah, my grandparents bought one.
Oh, wow.
And so, but here's the crazy thing, okay? They always hooked up their Atari to a 13-inch black and white TV. So, I'm telling you, I have not experienced Atari in color until the 90s when we found one somewhere and we hooked it up with my cousin. And I'm like, whoa, it's like actually in color? Because to me, it was always black and white.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I know.
I don't remember what year it was when I got the Atari 2600 for Christmas. I don't know if it was like a couple years or a year. That's where I'm like really foggy on when I got it.
Right. So what was the game? What was your go-to game on that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I will tell you, Ernie had a kid down in our neighborhood that lived down the street named Ernie. He had an Atari 2600, and he had a game I never got.
Uh-huh.
And I really liked, and it was a haunted house.
Oh, really?
You remember that game?
No, I don't think I've ever played it.
Yeah, he had that game, and there was a couple rarities that I don't know if I'm not sure why I never got it. I don't know, but I used to love. Oh man, there was like a Bond game. There was Frogger. There was Frogger was was fun, but it was frustrating as hell. You know, it was just,
Yeah.
gosh, dang, man, it just. I remember throwing the controller a couple times. I mean, you know, Atari 2600 was stressful because you got to so many levels, you couldn't save it, and once you died, boom,
That was it.
You got to start all over
Right.
again.
Right. What about, you remember, was it Keystone Cops or?
Yep, I had
That was
one.
a fun game.
Yep.
The game for us as a family, I mean, we used to have competitions for in bowling.
Yeah.
And I remember my grandfather, he always had the highest score. I could never beat him.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how he did it, but he made a mark. It's funny. He grease penciled a mark on the screen so he knew exactly when to release the ball.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Man, he was hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a lot of games. I mean, I don't know how, because games were expensive. But
Yeah.
I always talked my mom into, you know, I don't know, doing chores, trying to earn money for games. One of the games that I really liked, what was it called? Oh man, I liked a lot of the game. Yes, I love Pitfall. A lot of it was another frustrating game though.
Yes. Did you have Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yes, I loved Raiders. I loved all the I love the movie games. Yeah.
All right, so I gotta ask, because this is the biggest question: is did you have the horrible ET game?
I did have ET, and I played it nonstop, and I can never figure it out.
Oh my gosh, that is the game that took Atari down.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. Very frustrating.
So for those of you who didn't know and who didn't live through this, in 1983 there was a huge video game crash because of this ET game, and hardly anybody bought it, and eventually Atari went bankrupt, and no one wanted to hear of a video game console for at least 2 years.
Wasn't there a documentary on it?
Yeah, there's a really good. I think it's called the video game. There's one that Sean Astin actually voices. That one's really cool. I can't remember the name of it. But then there's an awesome series, if you're really into video games, if you can find it. I know it's on YouTube. You can just type in the video game years, and it goes by years. It's incredibly really cool. A lot of great information in there.
Yeah, I watched some of that. That is good.
So you had Pac-Man, Pitfall, Asteroids was huge, River Raid.
Yes.
River Raid was fun, and Duro. I remember that one. That was the car game.
Yeah.
Pole Position,
Boxing,
Defender.
Yeah, there's the Halloween one.
Oh,
I don't know
the
how
haunted house game.
I don't know how I never got that one. That just ticks me off because, since I don't have any more, I ain't worried about it. But yeah, those things would have been worth a lot.
This was the first iteration of, because I basically grew up in the arcade, and so this was like the first time that arcade games were finally hitting consoles. And so, this was their first attempt at,
Right.
like Galaxian, Dig Dug, Pac-Man, that kind of stuff. And I always felt that, they fell flat because I was always expecting, to see what you saw in the arcade, and obviously they just couldn't do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you kind of had to use your imagination playing these games because the graphics were so pixelated.
Right.
The only thing I can say that I miss about having like a cartridge type game like Atari, I wish they would have maybe, like the games today. Oh, they had a Porky's game?
What?
I just saw it. That's hilarious.
They'll do anything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I love the fact that you could just pop it in and it loads instantly. I just love the convenience of that, and of course we'll get to Nintendo.
So the Atari got kind of stale. I mean, it was just the same old games. Yeah, they were releasing games and all that, but computers were starting to rise during this time, and my dad had brought home this computer called the Commodore 64, and we didn't know anything about it. We hooked it up, and we had bought a game on a cartridge, because we also had the disk drive, but we didn't, really know how to use it yet. So we had this cartridge game called Buck Rogers: The Planet of Zoom, and that was like, that was kind of like a real arcade game. And so we were kind of excited for that, because that was the only game that we had. So we played that for 2 or 3 weeks. And then he had a friend that we went to church with who also had a Commodore. And so that weekend, I remember getting Commando, Bruce Lee, and Summer Games.
Oh, yeah, Summer Games.
All in the same weekend. And, oh, man, that was it.
Well, what year was that?
That was it was probably late 84 or early 85.
So was that when we started hanging out? Or when was that?
Yeah, because we started hanging out our 7th grade, so that would have been 85.
Okay, 85?
Yeah.
All right, so you introduced me and other friends of ours to the Commodore 64.
Yeah.
And we were blown away. I mean, the graphics on that were just amazing for that time.
Right.
We all wanted to go to Mike's house and play the Commodore 64, and and Cooch and Ernie, and we would spend the night over at Mike's, and we would play games all night long. It'd be an all night long fest. And what was the game we loved to play that scared the crap out of us?
Oh, that was the Beyond the Forbidden Forest.
Yes, that was an awesome game.
Yeah, I remember one night you had stayed over, and we tried to figure that thing out, and we could barely get past the first level because it was so freaky.
Yeah, and it was like Tremors.
Yes,
like those worms coming out of the ground, they'd grab you, and you never know when they're coming, and it was just freaked you out.
All you had was a bow and arrow, and you had to shoot them. You had to be at the right angle, because it was one of those games where you could actually walk into the screen and you got smaller.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of groundbreaking.
It was. And then, I don't know what year it was, but my dad picked up the Atari 800 XL computer, which was comparable to Commodore, but it wasn't quite there.
But here's the cool thing about that is we had games that were made for both systems, and we could, trade those.
Yeah, and the 800 XL had a lot of good games on it. But remember Children's Palace?
Yeah.
Well,
I love that store.
Yeah, and I was dying to get my own computer, and I finally talked my parents into getting my own computer, and they had one that came out after the 800 XL called the 65XE. It was a lower grade computer, but you could play a lot of the same games as I think you could play. I think they were compatible with the 800 XL, the games. Yeah, because I used to copy my dad's games and play them on the 65XE. So I finally got that. I don't know what it retailed for, but the same deal happened. There was a guy at church that had all these games, and the one, what was it? Some guy at your church had the Commodore.
Yeah, he had Commodore, so we used to get a ton of games.
From him. Yeah. So in our church, my dad got a bunch. Some guy came over. I remember one time, and they just they copied a bunch of games, on the big floppy disks.
Yeah, this was before, copyright protection was put in place.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if you didn't have a disk drive, some of these computers had like a tape drive.
Yeah. Well, this one had a tape cartridge drive too.
Really?
But yeah, we played mostly all the games on the. Oh wait, I think well, I know the 800. I think had a cartridge. I don't know about the 65XE. I think the 800 did.
But see, this was the cool thing. Okay, this was like before the internet, and we were doing internet before the internet, because what happened is you could get a modem for one of these computers. My friend Isaac had a 300 baud modem, and it was the coolest thing. All he had to do is call this number, okay, and this board would show up. We called them boards. It was basically a website, okay, but it was before the internet.
Right.
And what you did is you had to upload a game in order to download a game.
Yeah.
And it was like really cool, but you would be on the phone like downloading this game for like 3 hours.
Yeah, and it was
probably 15 meg.
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious. Wow.
Maybe not even that, it was probably 100K or something.
Yeah. Gosh.
So his phone bill was like astronomical.
I remember that happened. I remember you telling me that.
But I mean, yeah, there was so many cool games for the Commodore. I mean, man, that was my whole teenage years right there until Cooch got the NES.
Yes.
And then things kind of changed again.
Yeah, so let's go. Cooch was the first one to get the NES.
Yeah.
He was the first one, and I remember laying my eyes on, I believe it was Kung Fu.
Oh, yeah, that's a great game.
And I was just blown away. I wanted to play that game constantly.
The cool thing about the NES is they got rid of all the load times.
Yes.
Because with the Atari and with the Commodore, that was the main drawback. You had to wait forever for a game to load.
And remember the sound, loading,
Yeah.
I hated that. That was the worst.
So, yeah, but on the computer, though, you could save some of your backups. You could save some of your spots in the game.
Yeah.
Eventually, the NES would get that. But there was no load times. It was like you started it, and that was it,
Yeah. Well, dude, do you remember... Okay, so what year did NES come out?
That came out in the U.S. It came out in 85.
85. So when did Sega come out?
Sega actually... I think they actually beat them to the market, at least in Japan. It would have been 85 with the Sega Master System.
Yeah, and I had that system.
Yeah, I did too. I liked that system.
Oh, I did too. I loved it.
I can tell you right offhand my 3 favorite games. One was Rocky. You remember that game?
Well, of course. I loved that game.
That was awesome game.
That was great.
But my favorite one, though, was Black Belt.
Oh, yes. I love Black Belt.
And some of the wrestling team used to come over to my house to play that game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that game. Okay, so now I did get Nintendo at one point, but I don't remember when. But when I did get it, I got it with that robot. Remember the robot?
Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, right. And
Rob the robot.
Yeah, so I got that whole package deal. The robot was so stupid. I mean, you really couldn't do anything with the damn robot. I don't know.
No.
It was just cool, It was just, but it was like I don't even know what I did with it, and I don't know if I got Sega after Nintendo.
You might have. I think I got Sega first.
Okay. Because I can't remember. I just cannot remember the timeline of when I got both systems.
I'm going to add a little plug in here. Come Christmas time, if you want to check out a really cool movie, check out the movie called 8-Bit Christmas.
Oh, yeah, 8-Bit Christmas. I saw that one. That is
a really cool throwback to these kids who are trying to save up money to get an NES.
Yes. That was a good movie. Now, there was a couple kids in our neighborhood that got a couple game systems that we did not have that I really liked.
Was one of them the Neo Geo?
Yep, there was Neo Geo and ColecoVision.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who had ColecoVision.
Ernie had ColecoVision.
Okay. I was gonna say Ernie, but I wasn't for sure.
Yeah, because I remember this would have been a time when Atari was out.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a Donkey Kong, because that was their big
Kong,
thing.
Yep.
And it looked so much better on ColecoVision.
Yeah, it did. ColecoVision had great graphics.
Yeah, so that was kind of a step up of Atari.
Yeah, and then there was the Neo Geo. It wasn't around long. I don't remember the big draw of the Neo Geo.
It had it was more of like a 16-bit graphic system. But I thought that beat out. I thought that came before the 16-bit system. So that might have been actually the first one.
Okay. Yeah, it had great graphics, I remember. But I just don't remember. It just seems like a flash, and it was gone.
Yeah, it was one of those things. You either had it or you didn't.
Right. So then, okay, we're talking about
let's talk about some of our favorite NES games.
Well, yeah, let's do NES. Because
I'll tell you right now, my favorite one, you probably can guess it. Why don't you try? I'll give you a little hint. I am not a platform gamer. I don't care for platformers. So your Marios and your Sonics and all that, I really don't play those games.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, you and Dan used to play.
Oh, me and Dan used to play Mortal Kombat all the time.
Oh, Mortal Kombat. That's it. That's it.
No, but my favorite...
I thought that was it.
No, that is probably my favorite fighter. I mean, we hammered the heck out of that.
I know.
But my favorite NES game of all time has got to be, in the very first one, Legend of Zelda.
Oh, well, Zelda, yes. I guess I wasn't even thinking Zelda, but yeah, that was like the big one. That was like, I had the gold one. Did you have the gold one?
Yeah. Oh, the gold one was so cool. I wish I still had it.
Yeah, Legend of Zelda. I've never finished it, but that was like the pinnacle of games. You know,
it's very special.
Whatever.
And I thought that was the very first cartridge that had the battery backup in it.
I don't know about that. I don't.
Because that was their big thing. You could save your progress.
I just remember that was the coolest looking cartridge.
Yeah.
But it was, man, I spent hours on that game and I never even finished it.
I've finished the whole thing.
Man.
It took me 3 months, but I did it.
It would have took me 3 years.
Oh my gosh. At the end, I mean, I'm telling you, the last one, it is so frustrating.
Yeah, you got good patience with games. I have bad patience. Like when I get to a boss and I can't beat him like 10 times, I give up. And
you were into the fighters.
Yeah.
You probably would have been a big Punch-Out fan then. That's my number 2 game.
Well, I was gonna say Punch-Out because I knew you played Punch-Out.
Punch-Out is so
love
much fun.
Punch-Out. Duck Hunt, that was great with the gun.
Yeah,
remember
that was cool. That was really cool.
I had that gun, and I really loved that game. That was a fun game.
And then the other one that's very simple.
Oh wait, I know one of your other favorites.
Yep.
Let me guess. Guess. It is Castlevania.
That is a classic. I mean, that is it.
That was one of your favorites.
That one's awesome. It's mostly because the music is so good in that game.
Yeah.
And then, like I was saying, the one that was really simple, I didn't know that it was this simple until I watched some guy beat it on YouTube. It's Jaws.
Oh, Jaws, yes.
But that was a fun game. I could never figure it out back then, but I know how to play it now.
Remember Double Dragon, though? That was an awesome game. Because
Yep,
we could team up together. And that was great.
And then what about Contra?
Oh, Contra, yes, Contra. That was a frustrating game, but that was a fun game.
Contra used to just piss the heck off.
Yeah,
me, you know, because it was so you get like one shot, you get hit once. That's it.
Yep.
But the one on
Cooch used to love the racing games.
Oh, I love the racing games too.
Yeah, the racing games were fun, but they could get frustrating. What was the big one that you guys used to play all the time? Outrun was that was probably my favorite.
That is still a classic. If you can find the best version is the arcade version.
Yeah.
So if you can get it working on the MAME emulator, it is a blast.
Yeah, Outrun was fun.
That game is great. We used to play Enduro Racer. We used to play Mach Rider, I think it was. What about Spy Hunter?
Yeah, Spy Hunter. I used to play that all the time.
Okay, going back real quick, we all had different styles that we liked. Steve liked more of the fighter games. Now, Ernie, we had a friend named Ernie. He was the role-playing guy. He was the guy that was playing text-based games, story games.
Yep.
And so I got into a couple of them. And I would always call up Ernie to come over and say, "Hey, help me finish this game because I can't figure it out." But Steve, do you remember a game on the Commodore called Project Firestart?
No, I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, that has got to be the most underrated. This was survival horror before it ever started. It was this game.
Well, was it first person?
No, it was not first person. It was set in space.
Yeah.
And they showed the first opening screen is some guy kind of like mutilated on the floor. And you find out you're in this ship and there's aliens everywhere.
Yeah.
And you have a gun, but very limited ammo.
Oh, I hated that.
Those games, this one was so hard. Basically at the end, what you had to do is you had to rescue this girl, and then the ship's about to blow up, and you have to race somewhere to get off.
Yeah.
But it was the coolest game. It was so hard. I think I've only beat it once.
Some of those games that came out that were kind of like, heading into the horror were kind of like Doom and this one that I first played on Atari 65XE was called like Asylum. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that game.
Yeah, it was like you're kind of first person going down these hallways and and there's crazy people around, whatever.
You remember that game Chiller?
Chiller, I love Chiller. Yes.
That was like a horror platformer that was like. Yep. And wait a minute, if we mention that, we got to talk about the Goonies. You remember the Goonies?
Oh yeah, the Goonies. Yeah.
Because they had one, the Commodore version was different than the NES Goonies 2. But hold on. All right, what's the game that we used to play all the time? It was a fighter on the Commodore. We used to play this game all the time.
Oh, was it? It wasn't Black Belt, but
no,
it was. Hold on, not Shinobi. I used to love that game though.
No, not Shinobi.
Hold on, Kung Fu something.
Yeah,
it was Kung Fu something.
Yes. Okay. It was The Way of the Exploding Fist.
Yes, The Way of the Exploding Fist. I love that game.
That game is awesome. My son and I, we still play it today.
Jeez.
And then there was some knockoffs of that. You had the World Karate Championships.
Yes, World Karate Championship. But I still love that game.
Yeah, it's
fun. I had that one on my Atari XE computer.
Yep.
That was a great one.
Mm-hmm.
It was slower. It was like
it was.
It was slower, but I did like it a lot. Hey guys, do you like Star Wars, Funko, Marvel Legends, McFarlane Toys, Legos? Then I got a special coupon code to save 10% over at Entertainment Earth. Use my special coupon code KRAZETV with a K. KRAZETV to get 10% off at entertainmentearth.com. Entertainmentearth.com with coupon code KRAZETV with a K to save 10%.
So yeah, I think that's what the NES did. It really upped the ante. Games were faster. Mm-hmm. Definitely faster, and the graphics got a little bit better, and then until we hit 16-bit.
Well, it's weird because, you go from Atari and you go to Nintendo, you thought it was crystal clear graphics.
Yeah.
And now you look at Nintendo and you're like, well, how did I think that was such great graphics?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's weird because it's like, again, you're using your imagination to a lot of it. And you're like, now it's like everything's so real. You go back then and you're like, man, how did I think this was good graphics? But it's just what you're, what the latest and greatest technology back then, you adapt to it as, this is the greatest thing since whatever. And then it just keeps going. But so after Nintendo, we got the Sega.
Yeah, that was big. But jumping back real quick, do you remember the videotape game console type thing that we bought that we kind of got ripped off on?
Yes. What
remember
was
that game? That game came with. It was like a Top Gun type game.
Yeah.
And it was a gimmick. I mean, it wasn't very fun.
What was that?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but it was hilarious.
Well, okay, so after we get done with the games, let's go back and talk about the video stuff.
Yeah.
So let's kind of hurry through the next few systems.
Well, we gotta talk about the Genesis because that led to the Sega CD. I wasn't really big into the Super NES.
Well, wait, was the Master System, wasn't that CD?
The Master System was cartridge.
Oh, cartridge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so basically the Master System, I didn't have a whole lot of games for that.
Yeah,
I had Sonic and, a handful of games, but for some reason, I don't think I had that system that long because, like you said, Genesis came out, and that was like the big thing.
Yeah. Yep. And then they just started re-releasing all those games onto Genesis.
Yeah, so I think I must have sold my Master System to put money toward the Genesis. I don't know. I can't remember, but
yeah, I remember I bought a Genesis used from a guy in Sunnyland.
Really?
And it came with Shinobi.
Yep, Shinobi.
It came with Shinobi and Altered Beast. That was
Altered Beast.
That's all I had.
Yes. Yep. Those are great games. Rampage and.
But one of my favorites on the cool thing about the Genesis is the way that sports games played on it. I mean, you couldn't compare it. I mean, Madden, NHL looked amazing. Those were the games that I kind of stuck with. But if you want to, this is maybe a shooter or a platformer. There's a really cool game called Rolling Thunder 2, which is really neat. I mean, this game's hard. I could never finish it, but it was like a shooter.
Huh. Well, okay, so after the okay, wait. We talking about Master System or Genesis?
We're moving on. We're talking to Genesis right now.
Okay, Genesis. What came after Genesis?
After Genesis was the Sega CD.
That's right, Sega CD. So that was the first CD system.
Well, there was one called the CDI.
Yes, the CDI.
And I don't know. I don't think it played many games, though. I think it was basically for movies. They
did have games, but that was when I looked the CDI up, because I was like, remember we used to go in Best Buy and we saw we'll get to it, but 3DO, and they had the CDI, which is CDI, like interactive or whatever. It held 744 megabytes of 72 minutes of motion video. Or whatever. But when I looked up, now you can go to eBay and you can find all the CDI movies. They're selling, some of them are selling like, $50 or more, some of them.
Wow.
And they're 2 discs. And then, I looked up Terminator's going for like 8 or whatever, almost $50, whatever. And you look at it, CD1, or disc 1 will have, you know, like 5 chapters, just like like an album. And then disc 2 will have this. So you must have had to flip it, you know, when they said, hey, put in disc 2 to finish the movie. Now, obviously this was before HD or anything else, so I bet it looks terrible in HD because it had to be really compressed. You know? It was discontinued between like 96 and 98, and they only sold like 570,000 units. That's pretty crazy. But yeah.
Actually, the very first console that went CD was the TurboGrafx.
Oh, TurboGrafx. I totally forgot about that one.
I had a friend that had one.
Yeah.
And I wasn't into it. I couldn't get into it.
Yeah. I can't remember. I seen it one time, I think, by somebody in the neighborhood, but I couldn't tell you who.
Yeah, the Sega CD came really quick after that.
Yeah, Sega CD was awesome. Now, remember that game we played like all night at my house that you got? What was it?
Night Trap?
Night Trap.
Yeah, that was a big controversial game.
Yeah.
Back then.
That was cool because it was like real video. And it was kind of like a choose your own adventure type or whatever.
Yeah, you had to just pick the right sequence at the right time in order to beat the game, and we never could figure it out.
Right. Kind of like, what was that animated one that we used to play in the arcades a lot?
That was Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair, yeah.
That is like one of the coolest games.
Yeah, that was so frustrating, though. I
it
dumped
was.
so many quarters in that dang game, and I never got anywhere.
I could never do the timing. I was never quick on the reflexes.
No. Some things I just never got to that point, you know.
Right.
I wasn't that good, you know. I just was not that good. You and Cooch were very good at games, but I was just kind of like mediocre all the way around.
Well, there's some games that it's better if you just watch the person do it because, you know, you try and you just get frustrated.
Yeah.
And that was Dragon's Lair. I mean, I could never play that game.
I know. And I always like games where I don't know, later on when they came out with games where you had unlimited lives, those are the best games for me because I could just relax and not stress out. Because remember how much stressful when we got to the point where, when you got to, what's the game system with Tomb Raider? When that came out. PlayStation, yes, duh. PlayStation. Remember how frustrating Tomb Raider was? That was the only game, that was one of the only games I did finish. But gosh, it was horrible.
Yeah, that was tough.
It took up so much time. It did. And then Resident Evil, obviously, that was another favorite. I think I finished that one eventually, but I think I had to buy the book, though, to do that.
Yeah.
To finish that one. But
you remember playing Commando on the 64 and how excited you were when you finished a level, and then we started the next level and it was like we were just getting our butts kicked, you know?
Oh yeah.
And then eventually we would finish that level, and there was such a great feeling because games were so hard back then.
Yeah.
There was a bigger appreciation of, you know, achievement, I guess.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, my stress level was out the roof, man. I mean, when you couldn't save a game and you died and went all the way to the beginning, I mean, it felt like fun. It felt like you lost, like, part of your soul. like you put so much time and effort into it. I remember being 2 hours into a game, you know, like Atari or Nintendo, one of them, and lost it all. And you can't get those 2 hours back. And I'm like, no, this is bull, man. I'll never put that time in again and try to beat it. I just couldn't do it. I just didn't have the patience, so I'd give up. But yeah, I mean, you know, later on when you could save a game on a memory disc, remember What was it? PlayStation first thing when they first come out with those memory disc or memory cartridges.
The memory cards. Yeah.
Oh yeah, memory cards. That was the
coolest.
best.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, if we're talking about PlayStation, I mean, that changed. That system right there changed the industry again.
Okay, so what was the last system before the PlayStation that you got?
The last one that I had I had a Super Nintendo. And I had
Super
a
Nintendo.
Genesis with the Sega CD.
I had the Super Nintendo too, yeah.
And so what I did is, back then, Babbage's had a deal.
Oh yeah, Babbage's.
Where if you turned in all your game systems, you got the PlayStation for free.
Oh yeah.
So I got mine for free, and I bought 3 games on launch day.
Right. You were the first one, I think, to get the PlayStation.
Yeah, because I was doing research up on it. I had subscribed to EGM and GamePro, and so I knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time, and I got to say, hands down, I probably the best experience I've had on that was probably Resident Evil. That game changed everything.
Okay, wait. I forgot. We forgot 3DO real quick.
Yeah, I don't have much experience.
We'll just explain it real quick. We went into Best Buy and we saw the CDI, and we were like, I was kind of blown away. I was like, they got movies on discs now, CDs, but you know, things were going so fast. Nobody wanted to really. We were waiting to see if the technology would take off. So I never got a CDI. And then there was another one called 3DO, and I wanted that one, but
they had some games.
They had some games, yeah. And it actually won the Time Magazine Product of the Year in '93, and it still failed. And it was a 32-bit system, and it was owned by Electronic Arts. Yeah. It was. They found it in '91, but it didn't come out to like '93 to '95. I think that was their run, 3-4, a couple of years. That's it, and then it failed. But yeah, I wanted one, but I never jumped, and I don't know what that one retailed for, but we were just kind of waiting because every time you turn around, there's a new game system.
Right, and I think what happened there is, one, we didn't have the money to invest in this stuff. And two, all your friends either had a Sega or they had a Nintendo. Yeah. And that's all it was for a long time. Yeah. So you wanted to get the system that your friends had.
Yeah. And so when that failed in '95, did the PlayStation come out in '96 or '95?
The PlayStation came out September 12th, 1995.
Okay, that killed 3DO then.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean,
I don't know. I remember seeing it in a magazine, and as soon as I saw it, I was hooked.
Didn't you stay in line? You didn't stay in line for that one?
No, I didn't have to.
Oh, yeah, you didn't have to. Okay.
I didn't have to because I traded my stuff in. I pre-ordered it. I just went on day one and picked it up.
Yeah. I remember you getting it.
Yeah.
And, I was
that was the coolest
I was jealous.
thing.
I was jealous. I was like, oh, man, I want one of these.
It was very cool.
But they were like $200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, this was a transition period. I mean, the early games were, you look at them now, they're like garbage.
Yeah, but they looked awesome back then.
It was all polygons. It was all transferring, and I think Ridge Racer still plays really good. But the other ones are kind of, hit and miss.
Yeah.
But that was like a revolution started when that came out.
Yeah. And it's amazing that, of course, it was Sony again. That Sony always seemed to dominate and everything.
Well,
even though
funny.
they didn't own, well, if we went back to Betamax, JVC owned that, right?
Yeah, JVC owned VHS.
Or JVC owned VHS. And Sony owned Betamax.
Yes.
But they still overtook JVC, and what was weird is they made VHS the format. Even though they owned Betamax, which in my opinion, okay, let's go back to it. You had the Betamax. I had VHS.
You know why we got the Beta?
No.
This is hilarious. This is so funny. Okay, my dad bought a Beta because we had a section in our dining room.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of tiered, and it had like these shelves. And he bought the Beta because the Beta tapes fit in those shelves.
Well, yeah, and what's crazy about that, I liked the way the size was for the Beta.
Yeah,
I did like the size. They were smaller, and
the range was better too. It was, I think it was 480p.
Want to watch two things that are on at the same time? Well, now you can, because Sony's revolutionary Betamax deck, which hooks up to any TV set, can actually videotape something off one channel while you're watching another channel.
Yes.
With Sony's Betamax, you won't miss a thing.
A triple play. You've just seen a triple play.
No, I didn't.
You don't see those very often.
Sony Betamax commercial. Yeah, dude.
We loved our Beta, man.
Dude, I gotta admit, the Beta, we had VHS, you had Beta, but the Beta seemed like it played clearer.
It was a higher resolution.
It was higher resolution, but it didn't seem like you had to. It didn't seem like you had to do much tracking. Remember, with like VHS would get kind of worn down, and you'd have to mess with the tracking.
Yeah.
It seemed like every time you put a Betamax in, it would play without any kind of tracking, and it would just play like continuously, and there'd be no jumps in it or anything.
I'm sure you remember it too. When the first time you guys got something, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, now you can record TV.
Yeah.
That was like life changing.
It was. I mean, I had a heck of a VHS collection, but I mean, every dime I made, I would go buy more blanks, but I would have like, and you would sacrifice quality to save room. So you would tape them at SLP sometimes to fit 3 movies on a tape. And then if it was a really good one like Raiders or some big hit where you wanted top sound and video quality, you would tape it at SP. And then if it was mediocre, maybe you wanted 2 movies or whatever, you would tape it at LP. You had 3 speeds to choose from. But a lot of times if it was a movie, whatever, I just want to fit 3 movies on there, I would tape SLP and hope it was okay quality.
I want to say the Beta only had 2 recording. I think it was just LP and SP.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think they had the third.
And we all know the story why VHS went out, right? Or VHS dominated.
Yeah, go ahead and tell them.
Well, so the rumor, I guess, I don't know if it's a rumor or, I mean, it's what I've heard. I heard that the porn industry pushed the VHS format.
Really?
They were using that format, and that pushed the VHS to the top of to the dominant line, which is strange to me because if Sony backed VHS obviously, and they backed their own format Betamax, but I don't know, man. I just don't know why that industry could have pushed Betamax under and whatever, but because if it was better quality and everything, I would have thought if Sony held out, they would have dominated. But I guess they just said, screw it, we'll just back VHS. And then, I don't know, whatever.
So here it is. They say that Beta had superior sound and image quality, but they had the shorter recording time.
Oh.
That's what it was.
Oh, okay. So how long could you record a movie then?
I don't know. I mean, I
think they would have just made the tapes longer, or I don't know.
I don't know. It may have spun faster too.
Oh, okay. So maybe that was the reason. Plus, it was cheaper to make the VHS.
Yeah,
or something.
But eventually, I would switch because that was my first VCR, was a Montgomery Ward VHS that I had to work detasseling for.
Oh, yeah.
So that was like 1986, I think.
And I got my VHS, I think, before you.
You did. Yep.
And I remember Christmas, I would beg my parents, give me a VCR, please. You know, it was a dream come true to have a VCR. And I remember to this day, the brand name is an unknown name. It's called Lloyd's. Lloyd's.
But could yours break the copy protection?
Well, it did. But the funny thing was the Lloyd's had a remote, but it was wired. So you had a wired remote. But yeah, the Lloyd's did break copy protection, I believe, because I copied a lot of movies. But wait a minute. I don't know. Maybe not, because some movies were copyrighted or copy protected with Macrovision, and some weren't. So
remember, the unit that I had broke everything.
Yeah, maybe I didn't have that then, because Macrovision. I don't think I did, because even our yearbook thing, the video, it was copyrighted.
Yeah,
or copy protected.
That was a joke.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right, dude. I don't think I had that. So you had
I had it because I remember I thought your dad had said something about it, and he's like, "So how you getting past the Macrovision?" I'm like, "What's Macrovision?" I didn't know what it was.
Oh man,
I'd never experienced it.
Yeah, Macrovision was a pain.
It was.
It sucked. Hey guys, this is Steve here, and I want you to try the best superfood on the market. Field of Greens, real organic superfood. Just use my special coupon code HEALTHYLIFE for ultimate savings. The benefits of Field of Greens contain antioxidants, boosts immunity, completely organic, supports healthy metabolism, and a natural source of vitamins and minerals. Try Field of Greens today with my special coupon code HEALTHYLIFE at checkout. Healthy Life. We should talk about real quick, because we never did talk about the CD.
Right.
Do you remember when you got your first CD player?
Oh yeah, definitely. I got mine in '89. It was June. And I tell you, the reason why I got it was because of one particular release, and that was Guardian First Watch.
Yeah.
We had ordered some tapes from Long's Christian Music, and then when Guardian came out, it came out on CD, it had 2 extra tracks, and I felt ripped off because they were on the cassette. And so that's why we started buying, we got the CD player and all that, because these CDs that were being released with extra tracks on them.
Yep. And I remember Christmas of, I guess it was 88.
It would have been.
When I got my first CD player, and my first CD was Stryper, In God We Trust. And I just, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I was blown away by the quality of a CD. Of course, my whole paycheck went to CDs after that.
My first one was Angelica, and then I bought some scores. So my first score was Batman, and then my second score was Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade, and then followed by Willow.
Yeah, Willow, yeah. I had that same one.
And it was just amazing because there was no hiss.
Right.
Everything was clear, it was clean, and it was just like, wow, this is so weird.
Yeah, that was so clear. Yeah, it was awesome. Because, we wore our tapes out. I mean, we wore, well, what I would do is...
Oh, we wore records out,
too.
We
would go to the record store. I would buy a record mainly, and then take it home to my dad's record player because he had the better system, but he had a tape deck hooked up to it. And I would dub the record to a tape cassette
Yep.
And that's what I would play in the car and wherever else. I would play a copy of the album. That way, I didn't I wouldn't wear the if I bought a tape, I'd wear it out, leave it in the sun, warp it, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I got smart and started buying the albums.
What was cool though is whenever we would go, we would hardly ever, unless it was like a prime release, we would never buy the same thing.
No.
And then we would take it to that record player and just make a tape copy of it.
Yep. And, I mean, when you didn't make much money, we would have to buy things without knowing what they sound like.
Yeah.
So we would each. It was basically like gambling. We would gamble on a cover. Like you would pick one out. I would pick one out. That was a if there was no way to demo it, we would just have to go on covers or what the band looked like and say, "Oh gosh, cross your fingers." And we would both get a different. You would get something, I would get something, and we would hope that one of us got lucky, basically. And
either that, if we ran into Wade there, he would usually tell us what to get. What was good.
Yeah, Wade.
But because Wade had everything.
Yeah, we should tell them about, we were big into Christian metal, so we would go to this store called Berean Bookstore, and then we'd run into these guys all the time. It'd be Wade and Dave, and they were like metal connoisseurs, and we were just like, we would float between two stores, one in the mall called Zion. Was it Zion?
It was Zondervan, wasn't it?
Oh, Zondervan, yeah. And then Berean Bookstore. We'd float between those two. Yeah. And, I mean, we spent so much money on stuff that a lot of times we never heard of. We couldn't demo it. And, same with like, you go in Best Buy. You if you had a listening station, they would never have the album that you wanted to preview,
unless it was big, if it was a big release,
if it was a big one, but we weren't looking for a lot of the big ones.
No, we were just hungry for new music.
Yeah,
so we were looking for anything really.
Yeah.
Anything that was heavy.
I know, and so we were big into that. And
now, do you remember? Okay, so this is kind of weird, but the Christian music, especially when they started putting them on CDs, which one was it? Wasn't they cheaper, and then the soundtracks or the secular stuff was a little bit more expensive, and then it flipped, didn't it?
Which was cheaper?
I think the Christian stuff was cheaper.
Cheaper?
On CD when it first came out.
Maybe.
And then, because I remember buying a soundtrack and it was like $16.99, and I'm just like, what the heck is this?
Oh yeah, you're right. And they were around like what, $12.99, $13.99?
Yeah, and then but the soundtracks and stuff were higher.
Yeah,
and then eventually it kind of flip flopped. The soundtracks got cheaper, and then the Christian stuff got more expensive.
But what was great about the Christian stuff that we got, there would always be a little sticker on there that said, buy 4, get the 5th one free. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so we would, we'd collect those stickers. And once we got to the 5th one, I believe it was buy 4, get 5th one free.
It was 4 for 1 at first.
Yeah.
And then it eventually went up to 5 for 1.
5 for 1, okay.
And then it went up to 6 for 1.
Yeah. I think all you needed, and then you had to pay the tax, I think.
No, I don't. You didn't have to pay the tax. What they did is they took the sticker off the one they gave you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you had to start over again. Oh, man, remember that big display? I remember walking into when Berean switched locations. Metal just kept getting better and better. And I remember that big display of Holy Soldier in there. Oh, yeah.
That was the coolest display. And
do you remember the little cassette, the preview cassette you could get for $2 or something like that?
Yeah.
That had like 2 songs on it.
I remember the first, I don't know. I guess we're regressing, but the first time I was exposed to Christian metal was Striper, and that was at the mall, and I bought the the first album, I believe.
Yellow and Black Attack.
Yellow and Black Attack on cassette. And I saw these guys, and I was like, oh man, these guys look cool.
They look legit.
They look like metal. Talked my mom into it, blah, blah, blah. Got it, and I was sold on that. But, you know, we also listen to a lot of other stuff, you know. But
yeah, I mean, Petra, I liked David Meese. You know, we were so hungry. We were looking for Michael W. Smith and stuff, some of his early stuff, and some of the contemporary stuff like Dallas Home. Oh, man.
Yeah, my dad was into
Dallas
a lot of
Home.
that. Yeah, he listened to a lot of that stuff.
So it wasn't all metal. We liked rock. We liked contemporary stuff.
Well, I mean, we liked other stuff too, you know, also. Regular, you know, rock, metal. But yeah, I mean, that was just one of the kind of niches we got into for a long time. I mean, we still like Journey and different things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Yeah, I mean, so we got the CD. You got the CD player. We got into CDs. Well, remember what came in the mid-'90s that kind of we thought was going to change everything? And that was the MiniDisc.
Oh, yeah, the MiniDisc was cool.
The MiniDisc. I remember I knew somebody that worked at Best Buy. He was going to give me his employee discount. There was a package deal where you got the MiniDisc in the box, you know, the big set, but you got a little MiniDisc with it.
The player. So it was like a Walkman.
It was like $400 around the whole set. And I think with his discount, it was like, I don't know, $300 maybe or something. And I bought it. I was just blown away that I could record on a mini disc.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And for you guys, some of you guys listen go, what the heck is a mini disc?
Yeah.
It was a disc.
It was a big deal.
It was a little disc, rewritable disc that was in a plastic case so it couldn't be scratched. And I love that. That's what I loved about it.
It did have a notch, though, that was exposed, so you could technically scratch it.
You could technically, but it was more protected than regular CDs.
Here's the thing. We skipped right over the Walkman.
Oh, yeah, we did. The Walkman was huge. I mean, I had
that
several
revolutionized everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And the story that I'm going to tell is Wade. He told me that his parents got a call from some friends of theirs that lived in New Zealand. And they're like, we're at this house. You can come stay with us. All you got to do is, buy your plane fare. And so they went. And he told me, the only thing he put in his backpack was he loaded it up with cassette tapes. He had his Walkman, and he loaded it up with batteries. That was it.
Yep.
That was our teenage life right there.
And batteries was like gold, dude. Batteries was like
they
gold.
were expensive.
And it's like, oh my gosh, man. It was like, remember, you know what we also skipped over? The boombox.
Oh yeah, the boombox was huge too.
And how we used to strap the boombox. I know I used to strap the boombox to my bike.
Yeah.
And it would take like what, 6 to 8 D batteries.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And you would get continuous like couple hours out of that thing, full volume.
I remember riding to your house all the time, and my box was bigger. It was longer, and I couldn't strap it anywhere, so I had to just like hold on to it.
Yeah, it's so dangerous.
But I would blast that thing. I mean, it was blasting while I'm riding to his house. I mean, I used to take it everywhere with me.
Yeah, I remember on a Saturday if I'm trying to hit on a chick or something. Remember, there was a couple chicks or whatever. I said, we got to drive up to so and so's and I thought by blaring some cool rock music, I'd get the chick out to I'm like, oh man, how lame was that? I'm cruising around the neighborhood thinking chicks are gonna think I'm cool, blaring rock music coming from my bicycle.
Right.
It's hilarious. You just do stupid things when you're younger, but it's like, it's kind of like that movie. What was that movie? Say Anything maybe or something where he holds the boombox above.
Yep.
It's like kind of like what we really did.
And then eventually, before the CD, well, right around the time the CD, well, for us, when we got the CD, then you had the double deck boom boxes with the high speed dubbing.
Yep, high speed dubbing.
Then you could record a cassette in half the time.
Oh
Ooh.
man, that was awesome. It was really awesome when it flipped on its own and recorded the other side, and you didn't have to flip it manually. That was awesome.
And then they also supposedly had like car decks where you were playing your tape and you could easily seek to the next song.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have that.
Shoot, you know what we also skipped on? The
What's
8-track. The 8-track.
See, I didn't have any experience with it. I've only seen it a couple times, but did you have one?
Yeah, I had a stereo system I got from my grandma. Some stereo system that had an 8-track player, but I only had a few 8-tracks, and I never really got into them. I never got into them because it was just like they were kind of fading out at that time, and cassette was in, so it was like, I don't need 8 tracks.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up the 8-track.
Yeah, that's the 8-track. Hey guys, do you want the ultimate iodine supplement? How about liquid B12? How about liquid turmeric in a herbal cold-pressed tincture, never heated? The ultimate in detoxification. Pure, powerful, and potent liquid formulas in a raw herbal extract. Totally organic. Use our special coupon code HEALTHYLIFE at checkout at globalhealingorganics.com. Use coupon code HEALTHYLIFE.
But the MiniDisc, going back to that, you had this player that was kind of like a CD player, and you just put your MiniDisc in, and then you could record, and then you take your disc out, and you had that portable player that was just like the Walkman.
Just like
it was so cool, and you could just skip to the tracks that you wanted.
Yeah.
It was really neat.
That was awesome, because you could make your own tracks, and skip to them. It was just like revolutionary,
Right, and this was before you could not record on a computer, like a CD in a computer yet.
Right, I was taking my cassettes and recording them to MiniDisc.
Yeah,
and making MiniDiscs out of them. And
those MiniDiscs were not cheap.
No, but you could use them over and over again. So
yeah, that was
a
the cool
awesome
thing.
It was great.
Yeah, because if you write it on the computer, it just has one use.
Yeah, if you had unless you had a rewritable disc. But yeah, I mean, I love the MiniDisc, but the thing about the MiniDisc, it didn't last long in the U.S., but it lasted a long time in Japan, I believe.
Well, that makes sense. I always thought the MiniDisc, that was the precursor to Sony's UMD format, which was for the PlayStation Portable. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that UMD format was garbage. I didn't care for it.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Okay, so let's talk about vinyl. Do you remember when you first started getting vinyl, or were you too young?
I remember the first time I ever saw anything technical, it was probably a portable radio. So that would have been my first experience with music.
Yeah, mono speaker.
Yes, mono speaker, definitely. I remember I had gotten one for Christmas one year, and for those 2 weeks I just played. It was basically on KZ93. But our parents were into the vinyl because that's basically what they had. And tapes were coming, but I think a lot of people had more vinyl than they did. Either had an 8-track or they had vinyl.
Yeah.
And so, everybody had a record player.
Oh, yeah, records.
Do you remember those big, huge cabinets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
with the big, huge speakers?
Yeah, my family had one. Not my immediate family, but I believe one of my grandmas had a big console record player.
I wish I would have still had those.
Oh, yeah,
they're so cool.
Yeah, they were awesome.
But yeah, I mean, you know, Dad had, you know, tons of records and 45s and that's and he also had one of those little recorders. It was a reel-to-reel audio recorder.
Yeah.
That you could talk into the microphone and stuff.
Yeah.
We never got into he never got into the 8mm stuff. He always had just slides.
Yeah.
He always took slides. But
you remember like one of your first albums that you had, or?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been. My mom took me to the library.
Yeah, library.
And yeah, you could check out albums there. And I remember one of the first scores I checked out was Jaws.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, that was the coolest thing. You know, I had that, and then you remember the storybook records?
Yeah, I still got one.
Yeah, Batman and some of those other ones.
The Bible.
Oh
storybook.
wow,
Yeah, I still have that one.
That's cool. Yeah, so we were into that, and then I got into basically the scores were my thing, and then it, you know, went from there. It went into the Christian stuff.
Yeah, I know, man. I mean, I collect a lot of scores too back in the day, and but bottom line was, I mean, I had a heck of a vinyl collection, and years later, traded it all in at a video store. Most of all my vinyl, not all of it, but a lot of vinyl at a video store, so I could get money to buy VHS. I believe. I think I think that was it.
Or was it CDs?
Or CDs, whatever. But I remember doing that, and now looking back at some of the albums that I got rid of, they're worth like $500 or more. Some of them.
Yeah,
depressing. It's very depressing.
It's just crazy. I would have never thought that vinyl would come back.
No, I never thought either, because who wanted to listen to a bunch of scratchy sounding, you know, because when the CD came out, I was so glad. It's like, oh man, no scratching, no whatever. But now the retro sound is back in. And now, you know, and then you think, you know, the retro sound of an album really does sound good. Mm-hmm. You know, the bass, the frequencies, everything sounded really good. But see, we were tired of it. Yeah. We liked the clear sound of the CD, but now everything's kind of reversed, and now you kind of like that old vintage sound of an album.
And there's something about tapes coming back too.
That's kind of
really weird.
Because I don't miss the sound of a warped tape.
No, I don't miss the sound of the high
or
analog
the
hiss.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so annoying. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. But yeah, I know. Tapes are back in. Other than that, man, I mean, you're still collecting vinyl. So.
Yes. I bought a pretty good record player. I'm happy with it. And I hear what you're saying, you know, some of the range and stuff.
Yeah.
If you got a good record player, it does sound really good.
It's all about the needle.
Yeah, I hate paying $40 for a record, though.
Yeah, I know, man.
Sucks.
Let's talk super quick, because we got to wrap it up. But super quick about how much records cost when we were growing up.
Yeah, they were like $8.99, $7.99.
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now they're not. You can't get a record under $20.
I know. It's so frustrating.
I mean, unless you get it used, but. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's nuts, man.
You could get a single for like $2.99.
Yeah. So records were easily obtainable back then, and then, like I said, you know, if you had a blank cassette, you could just record the record to that, keep it in your car, and then when it got real hot out, and you didn't care if it got warped or not, because you didn't pay $10 for the cassette, you paid $10 for the album or whatever, and had a backup. So you always had a backup.
So the cool thing now is I'm taking all my records and I'm recording them just right into the computer.
Oh yeah, making
just
MP3s.
to have just to have a digital copy just in case.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You know, there's something about albums to me. I just loved going album shopping, but I would be so anal about, you know, leaving the plastic on the album. And I didn't want any finger marks like I still do. Like
the fingerprints.
Or fingerprints or like the nail marks, So I just always kept the plastic on the album to protect, the cover.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing. That's what I like about the vinyl is everything's bigger.
Yeah.
And we're like getting older, so it's harder to see.
Yeah, it was nice to see the lyrics big,
You open up any cassette and try to read those lyrics now, you can't read them.
No, I can't read the lyrics. It was cool. It was cool when you saw the the thank yous and the different things. It's just easily read. And then sometimes they have another photo or something of the album or the band in there or something.
And then you can easily get a framed art thing where you can put the album in if you really wanted to display it or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I like about it.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't know if I'll ever get back into collecting albums. I just collect too much other stuff that I can't afford it. But man, I do miss having a good album collection.
Right.
But yeah, man. So we'll have to do this in 2 parts
because we haven't talked about any of the video cameras. We haven't talked about
we haven't talked about the DVD, the Super Bit DVD.
No,
the 24-bit CDs that they released.
The
VCD. Oh man, there's just
there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we could do another hour, I guess, on this.
MP3s, Napster.
But that was that was in the 90s. It was in the 90s.
Oh
gosh, dang. But hey guys, thanks for listening to Retro Media Talk podcast. This is our technology episode, but we're going to have to do this in 2 parts because there's a lot more we got to get to. So stay tuned. We'll have part 2 coming up. And please check us out on all the platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Red Circle, Anchor FM, YouTube, under KRAZETV with a K, and some other platforms. Plus, if you got a Amazon, Alexa, whatever, you can always tell her to say, Alexa, play Retro Media Talk podcast, and she'll play it off Amazon Music. So
sweet.
Mike, we covered a lot of ground here, but we got more to cover.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll have Lago back. He can fill in and talk about his technological experiences too. So next week, we'll do that, man. That sounds great, man. It's cool to look back on all this cool technology and talk about it. Man, it's overwhelming though sometimes. You think about all the stuff you had. And so, hey guys, thanks for listening to Retro Media Talk podcast. We'll talk to you guys next time.
See ya.